all across India, there is insurrection. In central India, there's an armed struggle. In other places, there are militant struggles, Gandhian struggle, whatever you call it. There's a bandwidth of resistance movements. And actually, the fact is that I have been told quite straight by foreign correspondents for big international newspapers that we have instructions from the editor, no negative stories about India, because it is the preferred finance destination. However, now in the last, let's say in 2005 or so, if you look at a map of India, you look at the forests, the tribal population, the minerals, the Maoists, and now the security forces are deployed, all stacked on top of each other. Because there is a huge wealth of minerals, things like bauxite and iron ore worth trillions of dollars now, which the multinationals want to get at. And in 2005, around 2005, the various state governments signed hundreds of memorandums of understanding to create a kind of social engineering, which, the only person I could imagine could think like that was Stalin. The Home Minister who used to be a corporate lawyer, who represented all these big mining companies, then became finance minister, and then became the Home Minister, said that in his vision, he wanted 75% of India to live in the cities, which means 500 million people need to be moved off their lands into the cities. That cannot happen unless India militarizes. And it is militarizing at a speed that you cannot imagine. 2 years ago, they openly announced Operation Green Hunt, which was really a war against the poorest people of the country, the tribal people. And something like 200,000 paramilitary forces were deployed. There was a battle between them and the armed guerrillas in the forest who are Maoists, but also between them and unarmed groups outside the forests in places like Orissa. And many, I have to say, many people, many intellectuals and activists in the Indian middle class stood up and said, this is not acceptable, So those 200 or 300 MOUs, memorandums of understanding, suddenly ground to a halt. And you had this desperate situation where you had these huge industrial contracts being stopped in their tracks by the poorest people in the world. Which is something you really have to salute. So while the Indian establishment has hollowed out every institution of democracy in the country, the spirit of democracy, the ferocity of that belief in the fact that you don't have the right to do this to us is there in the people. And that's a legacy that has come from the freedom struggle and all that complexity.